Hey folks, welcome to the Triple T Thursday. For those just joining us, that's Tools, Tips, and Talk, where we'll discuss info for the knife maker. In today's episode, I'm going to continue my effort to make stainless Damascus. So far, so good. We've got a great forge weld on the first episode. Now we're going to go and try to restack that for this one. We're getting closer. Let's see how we do it. So we left off from last time. I had grind this out to check the edges. I've annealed it, and the reason you need to anneal this is it will actually split apart on you if you just let it air cool. So I had to anneal this in the oven for 4 hours at 1380 degrees, and then just let it cool gently in the oven. So we're all done that, but now that I'm done that, I actually need to reforge it. I haven't ground off the outer layers here. That'll just give me a bit of protection, but I am going to weld this on. I need to thin this out and restack it. I wanted to be sure to take it really easy with these forge welds. The last thing I wanted to do is break this apart. You can certainly tell the difference with stainless Damascus here. It does not move well. It certainly doesn't move like regular steel under the press. After 5 heats, I think I have this to the thickness I need. I'm going to be cutting this up into 3 pieces, so I just need enough length for that. Now it's time to flatten it out and get ready to cut it up. So here it is after drawing it out. It's 7.5 inches long, but it does have a bunch of places that just separated. It's just, I don't know, just seems to happen. So first thing is I'm going to have to grind those out, and then I'll know what kind of width and what I have left. Then I'll figure out how I'm going to restack this. The 4-hour anneal works really well. This steel is nice and soft and easy to grind. So after the grinding, here's what I ended up with. A couple still little cracks in the edges, but I don't really want to grind the whole side off for these. They don't go in that thick, and I'm probably going to lose a bit on the edges anyway. So I'm going to cut this into 3, restack it, and rewrap it. So there's what I've got. I've cut it up into 3 and stacked it. You can see it's not that big compared to the original stack, so losing quite a bit. Now, instead of putting it in a canister, because I just don't have a canister that this will fit in, I'm actually just going to wrap this 16th inch steel around it and just make a little cocoon, and then weld it up. I'm going to try to put the seam on the side. So we got it all welded up, it's nice and sealed. Got the pipe directly welded onto it this time, and I got my hole in the top for the argon to escape. So we're ready for the forge. Welding the pipe to the canister instead of using that coupling, much better idea. That worked out really well, had no problems. I was very confident on this forge weld, and it went really well. Now it's time to remove the canister and see how we did on the second weld. So here it is after the forge weld. Looks pretty good, actually better than even the first weld. You know, a couple cracks on the sides, which I expected, and I'll be grinding out. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Now this has got to go in the oven for another anneal session for 4 hours before we do any grinding or anything else on it. So here is the results of my second weld. the weld itself is flawless. I don't see any issues. There's a little crack here, but I just haven't ground into it enough. Same here. I'm going to restack it again, so I don't really want to lose a ton of material trying to grind all this perfectly. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to slice it this way, and I'll have two pieces that are about 1.5 inches thick. I'm actually going to put some CPM in the core, layer some more AEBL around it, and then I'll have kind of Damascus cladding on either side, and that will be our final billet for whatever knife I'm going to make. I think that'll look pretty cool. We'll have enough steel in the center. I might actually double up the CPM just so it's a little bit thicker. Yeah, and then we're going to forge that together and hopefully have a billet. And one more thing, guys. This is the steel I started with. This is 11 layers, and this is what I have left. In fact, this still has a little bit of the mild steel on it, so it's actually a little smaller. So about half after 2 welds. So quite a bit of lost material doing stainless Damascus. So certainly a success so far, folks. I'm very happy. I think I've got this process down. Fingers crossed. Maybe I got lucky twice, but pretty flawless welds on both of those welds. I'm going to do the final restack and get a billet that I can actually make something out of. The key thing so far, the introduction of argon is key, or some kind of inert gas. You could use nitrogen. Nitrogen apparently is cheaper. I just don't happen to have a bottle for nitrogen. So the inert gas is key. Having it in a sealed canister, also key. The temperatures. Make sure you're forging around 2150. I think a PID on your forge is kind of essential for this. These steels, the CPM especially, does not like getting too hot. It has a very narrow forge welding and even forging temperatures. You can't forge weld it higher than 2150. It just starts to crumble. And if you try to forge it less than 1900, it just cracks and delaminates and all kinds of bad things ensue. So some really specific temps here. And then that anneal after each of the forging sessions is really critical as well, to let that steel relax, because if it cools too quickly, it'll just crack and break apart. So lots of little steps here. Obviously the loss that I showed you is a big deal. I started with twice as much material as I currently have, and I've only done 2 forge welds. So that's way more loss than you typically would have. But that's why this is an expensive and very valuable commodity for stainless Damascus. Remember, our sponsor, Maritime Knife Supply, if you want to make your stainless Damascus, you can go buy Damascus steel right off Maritime Knife Supply. They also have Baker Forge and all kinds of raw steel and anything else you need for knife making, so go check them out. Thanks, folks. We'll try to finish up the last forge weld on next week's episode.